This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome to Rising Stars January 2022, the first in our series for this year, giving you some insight into three of our rising stars who've kindly volunteered to talk a little bit about their expectations from employers when they start looking and starting their career in the summer. For those who are new to this, my name's Dan Hawes, and I co-founded the GRB Group, as we've now become, 25 years ago, when I graduated in business studies from Brighton University. The GRB Group have grown to become the go-to platform for high caliber university students, recent graduates, alumni, and employers. We have 57 staff. We're based in Brighton. We also have an office in Milton Keynes. We have over 2,000 clients across all sectors, companies you will definitely have heard of like Amazon, IBM, Unilever, and Ocado, but also several fast-growing SMEs, the kind of companies that maybe go under the radar for a lot of graduates, but are going places and they really need high caliber graduates to recruit. So our recruitment experts have successfully matched over 8,000 graduates with full-time graduate or executive level jobs. A little bit about the GRB Group. So Graduate Recruitment Bureau is our main business. We are a multi-sector recruitment agency supplying high caliber graduate talent all over the UK. Cortex and Metrica supply experienced hires, so graduates with up to 5 years experience. Cortex specializes in IT graduates with experience, whilst Metrica focuses on analytical graduates with up to 5 years experience. Graduate Mentor is a free one-to-one platform launched in 2020 to mitigate the effects of the pandemic, especially for those students and graduates from diverse, underrepresented and disadvantaged groups. If you're interested in becoming a mentor or a mentee, do visit the platform and get involved. We also run a monthly podcast, a podcast called Student Diaries, where I interview 3 students every month, finding out a little bit what it's like to be a student nowadays and the challenges and the other expectations that they have while they're studying at University of Sussex. As you can expect, we're very active on LinkedIn. We share a lot of news, research, jobs. So do check us out and follow us on LinkedIn. And we also help students who are looking to strike out on their own and set up their own enterprises with a website called Student Startup. So check out Student Startup if you're interested in setting up your own business. GRN stands for Graduate Recruiters Network. This was set up to help recruiters share best practice. And we have about 3,000 members. We organise several webinars throughout the year and also in-person events in London where we get to network and share best practice and advice. That's the Graduate Recruiters Network. And finally, Rising Stars. This is our shop window into the caliber of some of the graduates that we have on our talent pool. Now, these are carefully selected final year students who will graduate in the summer from a variety of different academic backgrounds and who also demonstrate something else outside of their studies that really makes them stand out. So these are our 50 rising stars that we showcase on our website. Now, we run these webinars to interview them throughout the course of their time in their final year, and we've got 3 with us today, which I'm delighted to introduce in 1 second. Just to let you know, if this is your first time viewing Rising Stars, this gives you a unique opportunity for you to see a shop window of what we feel are the UK's finest graduating talent. We showcase 50 rising stars. You can go on our website, take a look at a summary of their details and request a CV. Access to this information is entirely free, and do check out Rising Stars at the end of this webinar. Right, let's crack on. Let's find out a little bit more from our lovely final year students that we've got for you today. We have Klebert Tembe, Mike Nellams, and Sophie Ross. So rather than me introduce them, I'll get them to introduce themselves very quickly. Let's start with Klebert.
Hello, my name is Klebert Tembe, and I'm a final year student from Lancaster University. Biochemistry is an extensive course where we explore the concepts of biology and chemistry and some of the concepts where chemistry might be applied into biological studies and biological research. As I said, I'm currently on my final year, and my group project is exploring anti-cancer drugs in mice. Outside my degree, I like to play guitar and my keyboard, and I also am interested in fashion.
Brilliant. Thank you, Klebert, and thank you very much for joining us today. Mike, let's find out a little bit more about you.
Thanks, Dan. So, hi, my name is Mike Nellams. I'm 22. I'm a final year's master's student studying engineering mathematics at the University of Bristol. It's a degree combining mathematical analysis, practical engineering, and applied data science techniques. I have a passion for problem solving. I'm particularly interested in pursuing a career in machine learning and data modeling. Outside of my studies, I engage quite a bit with society, such as chess, badminton, and baking society.
Brilliant. Yes, I noticed a lot of Newmark graduates do get involved with chess as well. So it's a natural board game for you guys. Brilliant. Thank you, Mike, and looking forward to finding out a little bit more about you later on. Sophie, let's find out about you.
Yeah, I'm Sophie, and I'm in my final year as well, doing maths and philosophy, which has been like a really cool combination. I've been lucky enough to also study like computer science and psychology as well, over like my time at uni. And at the moment, I'm specialising in quantum computing for my dissertation. Outside of studying, I've also been, like Mike, been in like a lot of societies. At the moment, I'm the head of production for the charity fashion show, so that's been quite a lot of time at the minute. That's what I've been focusing on.
Brilliant. Two fashionistas in the room. Great. It's wonderful you've got time to do all this outside of your studies. I'm sure that takes up a lot of your timetable. And that's why we have our rising stars, is because they do maximize their time at university and really make the most of it. And it's wonderful to have all three of you here from Lancaster, Bristol, and Glasgow. This is the real beauty of a webinar. We now actually have to meet in person. I'm not sure where we would meet. So it's great to have you here for the next 20 minutes or so, just to find out a little bit more about your background. Perhaps we'll start with you, Klebert. When you graduate in the summer, what are you looking for from an employer? What are your expectations?
Well, I'm looking for an employer that fosters an inclusive environment in the workplace. Coming from an underprivileged and underrepresented background, I feel that I must be comfortable in the workplace, and I want to see a company that values differences on each individual employee, and then it sees also the benefits, especially for work situations, particularly in team settings where different individuals from different backgrounds can give different ideas, leading into creative operation, into create new innovative solutions that can come out of it. And also, I would like to work for a company that offers support for these graduates. I mean, as a graduate, coming into the job market and into my first job, I think that will be quite different from what I've done previously in education. So I feel that this routine might be different, and I feel that it might be quite daunting for a new person to get into the workplace. So I'd like to hear some feedback in what I am during the work. I'd like to hear whether if I'm doing well or if I'm doing bad, specifically if there's a particular practice that I'm doing quite bad. I want them to sort of tell me this is wrong, you should not be doing this from now on onwards. And then for what I'm doing right, I'd like to be commended for it, and I'd like to say, okay, you should be doing this, keep on doing this, because this is different from doing education. So possibly I've seen that a couple of graduate programs offer they have a buddy system or a mentor system as well. So I think that that could be something that I'm also I tend to note when I'm looking for graduate programs, and I think that is quite effective, particularly for new graduates who might be sort of anxious into their first job. So that's something I also have a look on. And then as a last one, I'm looking for a company that encourages and values, the development of new skills, and then and also encourages personal development. I mean, there's more to learning than just formal education. Learning doesn't just stop at school or university. You can always have new skills. And I feel that, coming into the pandemic right now, there's a couple of skills that pre-pandemic they were thought to be vital into the workplace, but now they've just been superseded because, due to the pandemic. Now, last year people were working at home, so that fact that the company just sort of values the development of new skills, and then some of these skills can sort of be transferred into further jobs as you go along, as I may go along, as down my career pathway. So I think that coming into the skills development bit, I feel that rotations would be essential for this as well, because once I have a feel on a specific a division that I may work in, the graduate job, and then move into another division, I get to have a new flavor, and I will need different skills, during the rotational graduate scheme. So I just feel that, that might work quite well, and that is something that I always have a look, when I'm looking for a new graduate scheme. So I feel that those are the three main points that
brilliant.
I'm that
really well thought out answer. Thank you. And particularly for transitioning from university to the workplace, it is a big step. And
yes,
it can be very scary. And for some people it could be their first serious proper job, especially because the pandemic has reduced the opportunity to do internships or placements. So it's they really need to make sure that they support, as you say, make you feel included, and that they sustain that to get the best from you. And I think a lot of companies were already doing that, but other companies now realise that they have to do it. It's not an option. If they want to retain bright individuals like you. So that's a great start. Thank you very much. Perhaps we'll move on to Mike now. What are your expectations? Are they the same? Are they different?
They are quite similar. What initially draws me to an employer at first would be how welcoming an organization is. Yeah. So in fallout of coronavirus, people have become more isolated than before, than ever. So therefore, I believe it's crucial for a workplace to welcome its newcomers through structured training, buddy systems, and mentoring. So I'd definitely be looking for those sorts of systems, and I believe graduates would be looking for those as well. Not only this, but secondly, I'd be looking for how a company offers and highlights its progress for its employees again. So the movement of individuals between projects allows for better personal development, again, but it allows for a quicker welcoming, quicker integration into the workplace environment, which is often uncomfortable at first and a bit of a culture shock for most students. I definitely be looking at what rotations and secondments and similar opportunities there are, but I'd also appreciate how smaller to medium enterprise companies, such as the one I work at currently part-time, may not offer rotations because there aren't enough projects to work on.
Right.
But what they can do is they can offer you to look around the different workplace and the different employees there are and learn what different specializations and experiences those different staff members have, which I certainly value. The third value I'd look for would be the workplace culture itself. And how they value your mental health. Certainly larger companies can see you as a cog in a machine. So it's nice to feel welcome and supported as you progress through the company.
Yeah, great answers, and particularly where you referenced that a small to medium enterprise where maybe there aren't enough projects to go around, so it's kind of limited in scope. But there's other things that they can do. Certainly make you a welcome part of the team, and particularly in those organisations who are growing, you can get involved in projects as they grow, and very often you're working with a very senior person, so you're getting almost one-to-one training in a way. You're learning by observation as well from people who are very senior. So even if you're joining a big firm or a smaller firm, there are ways that they can kind of put their arms around you and really make you feel part of the team from the get-go. But that's really important to have that spark at the very start of your kind of career journey, if you like. brilliant. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Sophie, we've covered quite a few things there. What's situation for you? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I think quite a lot of similar aspects. I really like the rotational schemes as well. I think they're really important to sort of have a big breadth of what you want to explore sort of within the company. I think even if you think you're going to really like one aspect, um, you're never really sure until you start, and then a lot of things you might actually not know that much about until you're working on the job. Another thing I really like looking for a company is sort of a company that's pretty ambitious. They're sort of pushing the boundaries in terms of emerging trends and like leading change within the industry. I think that's something really cool to look out for. I think a lot of companies as well post their development plans for the next few years, and I think that kind of transparency, if you can see that they have clear goals, then I feel like it would kind of filter through to having a clear development plan like within your career and your goals as an employee. And yeah, another thing I think is sort of the ability to continue learning as well. Like a lot of people have said, like I think whether this is sort of qualifications or like constant feedback, but kind of training past the point of doing the job and sort of growing as an employee as the company grows. I think that would be something that I find really important.
Yeah, that's good. And if an employer is serious about hiring a bright graduate, then they've got to be able to realize that individual's potential for everyone's benefit. And like you say, having a career development plan, where you'll be in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years even, just really sets a nice framework for you to you can see how your career can progress. And a lot of you have talked about continuous learning. As university students, you will have developed a habit for continuous learning, and that just doesn't stop the minute you leave uni, of course. So they need to be able to provide those opportunities, because you're still a lot of the time you're still figuring out where your skill set is. So having a rotational program or moving from project to project helps you to figure out where you see your career going and what you actually enjoy. And if an employer at the end of the training program for a year or two can benefit from that, they can point you in the right direction. It just leads for a far more satisfying relationship on lots of counts. And many employers get this wrong. They kind of pigeonhole graduates, and you don't get promoted as soon as you'd like to. You don't get fast track. You maybe don't get as much recognition. It's quite it takes a lot of effort to organize a proper graduate development program. And so it's really interesting to see that all three of you are mentioning quite a few similar things in there. What's also interesting, and it has been mentioned before when I've interviewed other rising stars, was kind of the climate change context, and whether an employer is actually making efforts to say they're in manufacturing, they're not manufacturing things that have terrible byproducts, or they're a huge drain on the world's resources, or their supply chain is dubious, things like that. None of you talked about that, which is quite interesting. I mean, sure, we're all interested in making a difference, and certainly working for a company that isn't polluting the world is a certain nice to have. But there's lots of other companies doing some good things out there. So it's interesting what you said your list of expectations were. So we covered inclusivity, having support, a buddy system, a few of you mentioned, continuous learning, career development plans, and also there, Sophie, companies that are leading the way, pushing the boundaries. That makes it far more exciting going into work, knowing that you're working on a project that could be saving lives, or helping the planet, or things like that. So companies with a very strong mission is what you're telling me there. So that's really good. So perhaps we'll move on to things that are red flags. What would really turn you off an employer, would stop you going any further with a particular employer? Is there anything for you, Clever, that would really put you off an employer?
So I think that micromanagement is one of the things that would sort of put me off. I mean,
Okay.
I like to be coached and I like to be told, I mean, I like to have feedback, as I've referred earlier, into one of the points that I look for an employer in a graduate scheme. However, I feel that the constant sort of pressure and sort of, being, there's a bigger picture when working the projects, and just being sort of focused, someone like, let's just say a manager keeps focusing on such smaller details, which may not affect the bigger picture when you're working in a specific project during the graduate scheme, and then just sort of, let's just say, being told off for sort of that kind of thing. I don't think that just sort of gives the correct feedback when I'm looking for a graduate scheme and when I'm working there. I feel that there should be trust in the employees, but there should be also like a fine line between also feedback and just constant pushing and just sort of creating sort of a toxic atmosphere in the workplace. So I just feel that trust in the employees is good and feedback is also good, but there's just no micromanagement when I'm working there. That's just something that would put me off. And then I think that another thing that just would put me off is just sort of, I don't know, maybe sort of interpersonal conflicts between different levels of staff. I just feel that, like there was a company that I was looking for to work at, and they said that they operate in a politics-free environment, and that is something that attracted me into them, because I feel that, I mean, there's different levels of management in a company, and I feel that there shouldn't be like any sort of politics between, upper management, lower management, and just the different sort of employees. And then, I don't know, maybe an employee gives a specific manager gives you this, just you should do this, but the other one says this, something completely different, and then they just sort of have a conflict, and then you just sort of caught up in the middle of it. So I feel that that's just a lack of organization during the company. So I feel that politics and the micromanagement are just the two red flags that I will be looking for during a graduate scheme, and when I'm also doing my research as well.
Yeah, really good. We haven't had those before. Certainly micromanagement, like you say, it's a fine line where, your line manager wants to really help you, but, you might feel they're looking over your shoulder a little bit too much. I can get on with the job now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of having that kind of open communication, and so important having a good relationship with your line manager or your trainer, or that you could go to someone like a buddy, for instance, that's independent. Office politics, yeah. I guess that does happen in a lot of organizations. Maybe what you're alluding to is a kind of a meritocracy. You are promoted based on your, on your work and your achievements, and nothing else should really matter. But that's a whole nother topic, office politics, how to get on with certain individuals and things like that. It's very nuanced, and something for a lot of graduates, it's kind of a bit of a head scratcher. It's entirely new to them. But if it's very toxic, like you say, it just makes the workplace very unpleasant. So some good points there. Moving on to you, Mike. Are there any red flags with a potential employer that would just make you walk away?
Oh, definitely. So for me, it'd personally be lack of transparency.
Right.
This would come in two forms, I guess. The first one would be lack of transparency in the recruitment process. Because there's lots of recruitment companies and recruiters who just post a job. They just post like requirements, information, but not about the day-to-day, the work-life balance. And then that leads on to the second point, which would be the work-life balance itself. But lots of companies, especially the large companies, aren't transparent in how the work-life balance is managed, how much time you'll have to yourself, whether the work would be like hybrid, how many days off you get a week to work virtually, which is definitely becoming more important in like coronavirus.
True.
Definitely lack of transparency is important.
Yeah, it's a good one, because in their advertising and marketing, recruiters can paint a certain picture of what it's like to work for them by doing so, raising your expectation. And if that isn't matched when you start, it all can go wrong. So yeah, being transparent from the outset, talking about the hours you're expected to work, or everything, warts and all. Just to make sure that you're going in with eyes wide open, I think is only fair in 2022. So I think that's entirely reasonable. to expect, and also the work life or the life work balance now has become very, very important, especially with hybrid working, and particularly those who maybe have to commute long distances, trying to get some of their life back if they can work from home. So, working through that new arrangement in the workplace might be very straightforward with some employers. For others, it might be more problematic. Some companies are still working that out. Thank you for that, Mike. That's really good. Two new ones to add there. Sophie, are there any danger signs that really put you off?
Yeah, I think similar to Mike's sort of lack of transparency in the job, and then also in sort of like the interview process as well. I think it can be really helpful and like I think quite insightful to see that they've laid out what's coming ahead in the recruitment process. Another thing I think as well is sort of more when you're talking to like the recruiters or the interviewers, and it's sort of that they don't seem that passionate about their work. I think is probably one of the red flags for me. Like if they're not that excited about it, then I think it'll be less likely that you will be in your job, and then less likely that you'll really enjoy it and sort of like stay there for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
That's true. I mean, when you're in an interview, you're putting on the best version of you. Likewise, the interviewer is also putting their best version out. So it might be quite hard to find out what they're really like. But if you can find out if they're really into their role, and there's certain questions you could ask without being rude, I suppose, just to give you that feeling that this is the right company for me. They're happy, I'm going to be happy. But yeah, if you pick up those vibes very early on, and it could be the minute you set foot in the office and you speak to the receptionist or whoever it is, you're getting those vibes, aren't you, from those people that you meet. So that's really important. When you research employers, how are you going about this, Clibert?
I mean, it kind of depends on that sort of industry that I'm looking for. I mean, I've set up a couple of job alerts on LinkedIn, and I've had a look also their LinkedIn page of those specific employers that I'm interested in. So I mean, it just sort of kind of depends as well. I mean, there's LinkedIn side of it where you can have a look at the jobs and you can have a look at the research. You can research the employers, but also, I mean, I have a look at different websites for just for specific jobs like that. I mean, I could go on specific student websites and then have a look at that. There's jobs there. I mean, just having a look at jobs, that just leads me to the employers, and then from then onwards, I do the research. So I think I work from let's say a top down to top sort of approach, and then also let's just say, I mean, also in my particular, in the biological sciences department of my university, there's also talks about specific employers that come into, and they just sort of demonstrate what's the jobs into, like the sort of jobs in careers that you can get into after graduation. That just gives you a great insight into different employers that are sort of typical, could just lead to typical pathways into graduation as well. And then also there's alumni talks that I've been into to sort of explore different careers that I might be interested into. So that definitely provides a great influence as well into different career pathways and into me as well for different employers. So yeah, just different sources really are coming into.
It's hard to know where to start because there is so much information out there. But you talked about the alumni, so you're going to speak to graduates of done biochemistry from Lancaster. You can speak to them. What did you do? What's it like? You can find out so much. I think that's a really good route to go down. So thank you for that, Klebert. Mike, where do you look for companies?
So I certainly find that the personal approach is quite helpful. So careers fairs are very useful for me because speaking to different people and employees that have worked at companies to find out what they're like to work at, how their lives are, what kind of work they do. I find that's always great. Certainly sites like Glassdoor, I think it is, and
Yeah,
Trustpilot, those can be
yeah,
useful for finding out like that. The problem with those is that you've got to be a bit skeptical because people are only going to post the really positive or the really negative reviews, not really the average day to day.
sure.
Actually finding jobs, I find sites like GRB, LinkedIn, those are great for putting out the feelers and trying to find jobs. Definitely speaking to recruiters is also good because then you can find out what the recruitment process is like and they can make it to suit you, certainly.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's very interesting. You talk about social review sites like Glassdoor and Trustpilot. A lot of employers really panic about what's being said about them, but you're sensible and you realize that a lot of people may just put things on there when they're not happy, and there's a number of reasons why it might not have worked out for that individual. You're only hearing one side, so it's worth looking, but as part of an overall strategy, it's there to help you make a decision, I guess. Career fairs as well, you talked about, obviously they haven't happened in person as much recently. They've replaced them with virtual fairs, which I've heard, some good, some not so good experiences of, but certainly that in-person interaction, and in the big hall at university, you go around different stores and you speak to people. There's a reason they were so popular, and hopefully they will come back because, as you say, that personal contact really, really, really helps. So hopefully they will be returning to Bristol very, very soon. Sophie, where do you look for employers?
I think a range of places. Yeah, I think I used to, when we had sort of in-person careers fairs, I found them really helpful just to kind of talk to like recruiters and employees and like just see if it's a fit, like see if like the job sounds good to you and if it sounds like you would fit in well to the company as well. As well as that, I've sort of been doing a lot of coding work with companies, and they host a lot of presentations that like other companies do, and then I think that's really helpful to kind of see that, for example, like if they're hosting a presentation on sort of like interview prep or like that kind of thing, then I think sort of seeing that they're wanting to help people, I find really important. And then also, I think just looking at sort of company websites, a lot of them have blogs. I find quite interesting.
Okay.
Looking at like either like the style of writing and then also what kind of message they're trying to convey. Yeah, I think a lot of blogs that have sort of like really transparent information is really helpful.
And up to date as well. Nothing worse than a blog
Yeah.
from several months ago. So that's interesting because that takes an individual or a team lots of time and effort to get that. It's not just writing down lots of content that is good for Google. It's making it readable and interesting and engaging, and there's quite a skill to that. Some employers don't quite get that right, but it's interesting that you say you do pay attention to ones that are good, and it's all part of your decision-making process. Brilliant. Some great suggestions there. Thank you. I'm interested to know who influences you. It could be your friends, parents, your tutor, lecturer. What about you, Klebert? Who's influencing your career decisions?
I'd say primarily my mother, because I only live with her, so she just really gives me influences and just really advises me into what sort of role, she just says that, find a passion and find a role that you're sort of passionate about, and then just don't always, focus on the money, in a specific first job role. Focus on if you feel comfortable, if that company sort of matches your goals and just sort of matches your ambitions that you have into life, because it could just sort of, you could just use it as a platform into a different thing that you can maybe get into in your later career. So she's definitely a first influence of me as well when it comes down into career, to just making career decisions as well. But also, I mean, having a look at different everyone's personal story also on LinkedIn, because there's the feed as well option, and you just really get to have a different feel of, you know, what someone may have, you know, what the position someone was 5 years ago and now compared to now. That just really gets you to see that, okay, there's the progression that you can get into, you know, if you, you know, stick it into the specific position and just, you know, keep seeing what happens and just have a look at it, like whether if it works out for you or did it not work out for them. So really having a look at, you know, people's experiences, I think that is, you know, so also a factor. But, you know, it's not the only thing that I rely on to as well. I mean, I did a couple of skills training as well, you know, skills training programs, which, you know, they, you know, have it just improving a couple of skills that also makes you think that, okay, I liked doing such and such as, you know, at this, that, you know, made me feel that, okay, maybe I want to get into this specific job or into specific industry. So, you know, those are the sort of three main influences, you know, when it comes into career decisions, you know, skills training programs and, you know, parents as well.
That's great. You talked about LinkedIn, you know, you can see someone's CV who, you know, are 10, 20 years into their career. You know, before LinkedIn, you just did not know any of that information. You know, now you can check out who's going to interview you or who the CEO is or someone in the, you know, very senior, check out their career trajectory and you can look at, wow, they did that, they did this, you know, and that can give you a lot of confidence that, you know, you can zigzag your career before you actually end up, you know, finding out what you want to do or where it can lead. So having that information at your fingertips, you know, is really, really useful and such a big influence when you can see what very successful people have done in their careers. Mike, anything that influences you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So on the industrial side of things, certainly these large companies like Google, you have these heads and which make big decisions and have giant impacts on society, and not necessarily positive. And I certainly would like to make a positive change on society and local businesses and people around the world. And that's what motivates me industrially to work on this research, to do the machine learning that can change lives and improve people's well-being, which is quite positive. On the personal side of things, I certainly find that my friends are very supportive of me. They're all very diligent. They work hard, and I try and keep up with them, I suppose. That's very nice. And also my mother is definitely great at supporting me because she's a counsellor herself, so she definitely values mental well-being.
Brilliant. It's good. Big shout out for mums there. Sophie, is it the same for you? Is there something different that influences you perhaps you'd like to share?
Yeah, I feel like I should chat with my mum.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think.
Good,
Parents as well. Yeah, I think they really encouraged me to sort of explore a lot of options and just kind of like go for it when it comes to applying for jobs and exploring careers. I also think like I've been really lucky to be able to be in a lot of societies, like over being in uni. So sort of like working with the University Magazine, media, I was in the Tech Society, and so meeting a lot of people I think that really want to sort of make a difference to like a lot of different industries has been pretty a big inspiration. And then I also think again LinkedIn is really handy to kind of see the timeline of everyone.
Yeah, that's true. And also, like you say, with societies, you know, you're mixing with different people who have different viewpoints, and influences can be very serendipitous. You know, things happen. You meet someone you hadn't thought of a job or a career before you, or it changes your perception. So certainly, mixing with different people is really helpful. That's wonderful. We're almost at the end. I've just got one final question, and so, you know, you've all done your research. You've all got a good idea about the kind of employer you want to work for. You've steered around ones that don't really do it for you. You've run this by your parents, your friends, the people who influence you. What is the final deciding factor that makes you say, yeah, right, I'm going to apply for this job and I'm really going to go for it? If we start with you, Klebert, please.
I mean, the final factor that would just really get me into it. I mean, it would have to be just really, if I'm just my gut feeling really, that my gut
Yeah.
feeling really, it would just have I would just have a selection, and I would just have to say that, okay, I really like this company. I think that often your gut feeling is quite, it just makes you, it just leads you on to good decisions sometimes, you know, because that's what your heart tells you, and that's what your mind sort of gets you into it. So you can often make sort of good decisions without putting too many like thoughts and too much thinking into it. So I just feel that my gut feeling would be the very last thing that would just guide me into the company that I would like to work for. So yeah, I think that would be it.
Yeah, brilliant. Gut feeling, totally. We can't ignore that. If it doesn't feel right, you know, even if they're offering up, you know, massive salary, like, you know, like your mum had said, isn't that important, or it just something isn't quite right. You know, it could be, you could be wasting your time. So it takes, you know, a brave individual to their conviction to go with their gut feeling as well. It takes, you know, it's a good move, sensible move. Mike, is there a final deciding factor for you with an employer that makes you go over that line and commit?
For me, I find that how active a company is would definitely be a final deciding factor,
Right,
because once I've done all the research, I've found out, okay, this is the one I'd like to go for. It seems like the job for me. How active, I guess, the recruiters and also just the company themselves are, because if they're quite like all the information's out of date, they don't communicate quickly. They take like a month to respond. That's definitely a red flag. But if they're quick to respond, they're working with local businesses, like that's definitely a positive. That's
Yeah,
what
so they walking the talk, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, excellent. And finally, you, Sophie, is there something that, you know, just gives you the green light? Yep, go.
Yeah, probably if I sort of really believe in the product they're producing and sort of like the impact that they're making, I think that would be a really big deciding factor for me. Whether that's sort of really supporting clients and like believing in the clients that they're serving, or producing a product that's really beneficial or really good for the environment. I think, yeah, sort of really believing in what they're doing would be the deciding factor for me.
Yeah, absolutely, because you've got to live and breathe what their mission is. If you don't quite feel it, then it's not going to feel right, is it? Excellent. 3 really good answers to finish our webinar today. So I hope you found this very insightful, very useful to find out a little bit more about some of our rising stars and their expectations, how they go about researching employers, any red flags, any things that put them off, their influences on their choice, and finishing off there with their final deciding factors. Thank you all for joining us today, Clebert, Mike, and Sophie. Do appreciate it. And for our viewers, if you'd like to find out more about our rising stars and request CVs for our 3 rising stars who've been with us today, do visit our website. And there's far more information on there, and we can talk about them in more detail. Great. Well, we look forward to running another webinar very, very soon. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.